Well, thank you everybody for coming. We will be pretty much answering our pre-submitted questions today, as you did when you were registering. But if you do have any other comments to make to the project team, please use the chat function below. So it's just on the bar right at the bottom, and you'll see a chat function with a comment icon there. Those will be sent to the project team, and we will answer them during the Q&A session this evening. If you have any other questions or difficulties, just let us know.
Sounds good. So hello and welcome to our virtual information session for the Ascension Land Use Amendment. My name is Kathy Oberg, and I'm with BNA Planning Group, and I will be sharing information today about the Ascension Land Use Amendment application. With me here are the plan area landowners. I've got Adrian Monroe, Dennis Ingalls from Highfield, Jacob Weber from Royop, as well as other members of the project team who supported the development of this application and the associated technical studies. And as we get to questions, if we need to, we'll introduce our additional team as needed throughout the presentation. So let's get started. Let's talk about the agenda. So the information session today will walk you through the application in progress and then give additional details on the neighborhood, the marketplace, transportation improvements, servicing, and how Ascension will fit into the existing Bears Paw community. We would like to thank everyone who did pre-submit questions, as Darby had noted, in advance of the event, and we're going to try our best to answer those questions throughout the presentation. And also, we will take questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll do our best to answer everything we can until 7:30. If we do have some questions that are unanswered, we will endeavor to put a full complement of answers together and submit that to everyone that attended. We are recording this presentation, and it'll be posted on the project website after the event. And this is in the case that some of your neighbors couldn't come or you'd like to watch it again after. So we want to have that available to you all. So first, we'll give you an overview of the plan area and the application in progress. So the location, I'm sure many of you are aware, but we are located in Rocky View County, just west of the city of Calgary. It consists of approximately 275 acres of land, and we're immediately south of Highway 1A and west of 12 Mile Coulee Road. So planning on this land began many years ago with the development of the Ascension conceptual scheme, which went through the CMRB evaluation process. So that's the Calgary Metro Region Board, and was approved by Council in September of 2021. This conceptual scheme is the guide for the existing land use amendment and is available on the project website, highfieldbearspaw.com, and it's also available on the Rocky View website as well. The draft land use amendment application was submitted to the county in October of 2022 and was circulated to landowners in the vicinity of the plan area from December until January of this year. Since that time, the project team has been working through resolving and responding to the comments that we were received from the county, the city of Calgary, the public, and other stakeholders. These comments informed our updated application, which was resubmitted to the county in August. So this application is undergoing preliminary review, but will be recirculated by the county to landowners within the vicinity of the plan area this fall. You'll have the opportunity to provide additional comments or questions to Rocky View at that time. And you're also welcome to reach out to our project team at any time through the project website. This information session is intended to provide you with all the information you need about the application and what is being proposed. We will also highlight changes that have been made from the October application that you saw last to the recent application that we just noted from August. So the application in progress is a land use amendment to change from the existing agricultural general district to land uses that will allow for residential and commercial development as described in the approved Ascension conceptual scheme. These land uses will provide direction for the types and forms of development allowed within the plan area, with provisions for things like permitted and discretionary uses, setbacks, lot sizes, building heights, and more. Oops. As noted, the land use application will be in alignment with the council-approved conceptual scheme, whose land use concept is shown here. And this is what's sitting in that existing conceptual scheme on our website and at Rocky View County. Still considered in alignment with the previous plan, 2 minor refinements were made in October of 22 and the current land use application. The first was a slight adjustment to the road network to allow for larger lots on the perimeter of the plan area to allow for a more sensitive transition with adjacent country residential. And the second is a slight adjustment to the road network in the southwest corner to provide a more direct connection to Glenbow Ranch. This change was a request by council at the time of the conceptual scheme approval and was noted in the plan with an annotation on the road network map. As part of the council decision, it was also decided that any connection to Bearspaw Village Road would be an emergency access only. This current land use concept is the same as the October 2022 application that was circulated in the winter. The application that you saw last winter proposed a direct control district for the marketplace and a combination of districts from Rocky View's land use bylaw for the neighborhood area. These districts were intended to facilitate larger single-family lots around the perimeter of the plan, with smaller lots towards the interior and towards the marketplace. In addition, the parks and open space in the form of environmental reserve and municipal reserve were specifically identified by a different land use as well as the stormwater infrastructure. Based on feedback from Rocky View County, as well as other letters received on the application, we made some updates to the application. The underlying land use concept and road network are the same, but the current application includes provisions that are more accurately guide the unique plan area vision and proposes a direct control district for the whole site. The plan area is divided into 6 sites, sites 1 to 5 for the neighborhood portion and site 6 for the marketplace. So the county land use bylaw, sorry about that, parks and utilities are permitted uses in all districts. So in this update, the parks and open space network, specifically the linear parks woven through the community, have been integrated into different sites. So what is a direct control district? It's a district that is added to the land use bylaw for development with unique characteristics, unusual site conditions, or innovative design that does not fit well within any of the existing available districts. Why are we applying for a direct control district now instead of using the same districts as the original application? So in reviewing the feedback from the county and the public, it became clear that the existing land use districts in the Rocky View land use bylaw were not effectively guiding or describing the unique vision for the plan area. The plan area is intended to be a transition between urban and rural, with lot sizes and housing types in between. So our updated application for the neighborhood reflects greater minimum lot sizes than the previously utilized districts and more guidelines for the housing types. In addition, as the site has significant slopes and many other proposed linear parks, this land use approach allows a little bit more flexibility within the final grading of the site. So we're now going to give you some more details on the vision for the neighborhood that is reflected in the direct control district. Similar to the previous application, the overall area has been divided into different sites to allow for a transition of housing types and densities. These 5 sites will require larger lots around the perimeter of the site, adjacent to existing country residential, and allow for smaller lots in the interior along the main road and towards the marketplace. Site 1 will be entirely single detached housing on the largest lot sizes. The minimum parcel size in our new direct DC district is more than double of the previously proposed district. There will also be some park spaces integrated throughout and dedicated as municipal reserve. Site 2 will be mostly detached housing with some potential semi-detached on the northern side by the highway, again with parks and pathways woven throughout the district. Site 3 along the central road through the plan area will be a mix of housing forms, lot sizes, and linear park spaces. Site 4, as specified in the conceptual scheme, will be a comprehensively planned site of row housing. And finally, 5 encompasses the main environmental reserve and abutting park spaces. This land use will preserve the ravine in its natural state, including the existing wetland, with some minor adjustments to accommodate new naturalized stormwater management pond, a dry pond, and utility infrastructure. The wetland and the Hawkwood family bonsai tree will be retained, and a pathway connection will be made to the nearby Lasso Trail. Site 5 and the parks and open spaces woven through the neighborhood make up 22% of the total plan area, And we will be providing, someone's not muted. I'm just trying to figure out who it is. Team is muted. Oh, Adrian. Okay, thank you. We will be providing program park spaces which includes seating, pathways, and a playground. So when comparing the previously utilized districts with the current application, there are many benefits. Our application exceeds the minimums of the equivalent districts in the land use bylaw. We're proposing larger lot widths and areas for all single detached housing, and only allows for single detached housing directly adjacent to existing country residential. These changes more accurately guide the transitional density that this plan area represents. So to demonstrate this transition within the surrounding context, you can see that Ascension proposes a residential density that is midway between the suburban Calgary and country residential of Rocky View. The older communities of Rocky Ridge and Royal Oak are approximately 5 to 6 units per acre, while Rockland Park to the south is 8 units per acre, which is the current minimum for any new development within the city of Calgary. Ascension is proposing approximately 2.49 units per acre in the neighborhood portion and 3.76 units per acre across the whole plan area. There was also a question received in advance of the event about whether there will be a future extension to the project. To answer that, simply, it is no. This land use amendment encompasses the whole conceptual scheme plan area. Any future development in the Bearspaw area would be subject to a different planning and approvals process. The Glenbow Ranch ASP does identify some developments immediately west of the plan area, and it's called Cell J, but this is owned by different landowners, and we cannot speak to any details or timing of their plans. With respect to the marketplace, there were also many comments received about this area and requests for additional detail on what is being proposed. So we will now provide an overview of that vision. As previously noted, the marketplace has been identified as Site 6 in the proposed direct control district. The marketplace is located adjacent to Highway 1A and 12 Mile Coulee Road. Due to the slopes in this area, the site will be broken out into development cells that terrace down at different elevations. It will include a mix of large, medium, and small retail and is intended to support a small-scale retail main street. Additional residential may also be integrated into the marketplace area. And at this time, we have not included seniors or assisted living developments within the marketplace. The area will include a common architectural theme, as well as landscaping, outdoor gathering areas, and pedestrian infrastructure throughout. The plan shown on the screen is conceptual at this time and may be subject to change at the development permit stage, but gives an idea of the potential layout. One question that was identified in some of the response letters was whether there is a need for more commercial in this area. As identified here, this site is one of the only community scale commercial areas in this region, with the larger regional Crowfoot shopping area approximately 5 kilometers away, and only smaller neighborhood retail centers in the adjacent neighborhoods. In addition, most of the other employment areas are located in the city of Calgary, whereas this is located in Rocky View County with a maiden Rocky View approach. As mentioned, the site is significantly sloped with approximately 40 meters of grade change across the whole area. Therefore, the plan will include terracing of different pockets of development and the integration of some slope adaptive building designs. With respect to the transition to the adjacent residential to the south, provisions have been included in the conceptual scheme and in the direct control district to ensure a sensitive transition and interface treatments with the inclusion of landscape terracing or berms and vegetation. The DC district includes clauses that limit any large-scale retail or digital displays within 125 meters of the southern boundary. With respect to the architectural design and materials within the marketplace, the vision is intended to honor the natural environment and agricultural history of the area. To illustrate this, we've put together a couple conceptual renderings of the proposed small-scale retail main street. The main street will be fronted by small-scale retail and include street trees and wide sidewalks. In addition, the marketplace will include slope-adaptive building designs, outdoor gathering spaces, and celebrate the mountain views. Finally, when it comes to the land use application and the direct control district for the the application was updated to include more specific clauses to guide the direction for this development, as well as respond to some concerns expressed in the public circulation responses. Some uses were moved to discretionary to give council more control over their implementation, also to ensure a more sensitive transition with the existing residences to the south. The DC includes provisions that restrict large-scale retail and digital displays, as noted before, within 125 meters of the south boundary. And there is a limit on only 2 large-scale retail uses on the site. Additionally, there are provisions regarding landscaping, pedestrian connections, and the integration of slope-adaptive building designs. Transportation, let's talk about that. The internal road network is largely the same as the conceptual scheme and utilizes Rocky View County standard road cross sections. There was one question asked about transit service in the area and whether the LRT would be extended. The Tuscany LRT is approximately 2.5 kilometers away and is planned and is the planned end of the LRT. However, the road network has been designed so that if transit service is ever extended here by the municipality, the road network can accommodate loops and stops. Surrounding the plan area, there are 3 major external improvements planned. First, an interim continuous flow intersection, we call it a CFI, at Highway 1A and 12 Mile Coulee Road. Second is a new roundabout on 12 Mile Coulee between Blue Ridge Rise and Tusslewood Drive. And finally, upgrades to Blue Ridge Rise itself. So let's talk about this continuous flow intersection, the CFI. This intersection today is overcapacity, and we are proposing a solution that will bring significant improvements. However, with the development Ascension, an interim solution is proposed at this intersection in the form of a CFI. The CFI will provide additional capacity to the intersection until such time that Alberta Transportation constructs a full grade separated interchange, which could be decades away. There was a question received about how the CFI would function, so I'll describe as best I can the diagram that you see on the right. So in a CFI intersection, left turning vehicles on Crowchild Trail and Highway 1 will turn across traffic at separate crossover lights ahead of the main intersection so that they can proceed at the same time as the through movements when they reach 12 Mile Coulee Road. Right turning vehicles would proceed as usual as you would when you come to an intersection. This makes traffic flow through the intersection much more efficient, particularly for left turning vehicles. As you can all attest to with many intersections we use around the region, we patiently wait for all the turning movements before the straight movements are able to go through the lights. So if we manage to do all movements at the same time, we end up creating an intersection that is operating efficiently and reduces the wait times at the intersection. So I'm just going to use my mouse here and just kind of show you on the diagram. So this is that cross movement that you would see. So as you would normally come up to a set of lights, I'm coming from the right-hand side here, you would wait and all the cars would turn and the through traffic would just pause and wait until the light changed and all of the cars turned, in the opposite direction. Where this one here, you're coming along and you cross over and you're controlled by a set of lights and you stack right here until the light changes. So at that point in time, you get movements on this south side. You'll have the same kind of movement on the north side. And at the same time, everyone else can move straight through the intersection. So it's very efficient. So there are examples of this intersection in the United States and one in Canada in Charlottetown, PEI. There was an additional question received about whether a sound barrier would be installed along Crowchild Trail. The designs done at this stage are preliminary and additional detailed designs will be completed as the project progresses. We have not been asked to complete a noise study, but if we are, that would identify whether a sound attenuation wall is needed at this location. So there's a couple of items of note that we need to also identify with the preliminary CFI designs that we've undertaken. First is that access to Nagway Road will change as a result of this new design. Outbound left turns from Nagway Road to the north on 12 Mile Coulee may need to be restricted for safe intersection operation, but a final determination about the access restriction, if any, will be made by Rocky View County at the design stage with advance notification to all residents. Secondly, And as already identified in the conceptual scheme, when 12 Mile Coulee Road is upgraded, provincial policy will require closure of the access to Township Road 253. This road currently provides access to one resident, and an alternate access will be provided through the roads within our plan area. The specific location of where this will connect will vary depending on the final grading plan, but will be along the northeastern road of the plan. The second improvement is a new roundabout on 12 Mile Coulee Road between Blue Ridge Rise and Tusslewood Drive. This offset intersection is already challenging, particularly for left-turning vehicles trying to access 12 Mile Coulee Road from Blue Ridge, and the roundabout will significantly improve the traffic flow and safety. And then finally, Blue Ridge Rise is proposed to undergo improvements to support the additional traffic flows. The existing road is a standard rural cross-section with a paved surface with ditches on either side. The new road will include additional driving lanes, curbs and gutters, street trees, and sidewalks. Some concerns were raised in the letters about the safety of pedestrians on this road, and these improvements will make the road much safer than it is today for pedestrians with the inclusion of separate sidewalks. In addition, a question was received in advance of this event asking why Blue Ridge Rise is the main access to the community and why an alternate access location is not possible. So the spacing of access intersections is limited by provincial regulations and the needed space from the future planned interchange at Crowchild Trail. With respect to Highway 1A, direct access from the highway is not permitted as highway intersections already exist at 12 Mile Coulee Road and Bears Paw Road. And with respect to 12 Mile Coulee Road, as per provincial regulations, Tusslewood Drive into Tuscany is already at the farthest north position that a permanent intersection can be allowed. And no access to 12 Mile Coulee will be permitted any further north than this. So it would be impossible to add another access for Ascension. And that's why the access for Ascension will realign Blue Ridge Rise to align directly with Tusslewood Drive using a roundabout. With respect to pedestrian connectivity, the plan area includes a mix of trails and pathways throughout, and all the external road improvements will include pedestrian crossings and connections to the regional pathway network. Another question received asked about the transportation studies completed. Detailed technical studies and traffic modeling have been undertaken throughout the conceptual scheme and land use amendment process. A comprehensive transportation impact assessment with joint review by Rocky View, the City of Calgary, and Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors was completed, which focused on access and traffic flow for the area. The proposed intersection upgrades, including the roundabout on 12 Mile Coulee Road, are a direct outcome of the traffic study and will provide the highest possible level of traffic flow for existing and new residents. Neighborhood services. Now let's talk a little bit about that. There were a few questions received in advance of this session about the servicing of Ascension. So we'll touch upon the overall servicing strategies for the plan area. Ascension will be a fully serviced community with piped water, sanitary, and stormwater infrastructure. A servicing study and master drainage plan were completed for the Ascension conceptual scheme and updated with additional information as part of the land use amendment application. These updated studies will be reviewed in detail by both Rocky View County and the City of Calgary. With respect to water service, the project team is working with Rocky View County to confirm the servicing requirements and infrastructure connections. Water servicing to the development will need to meet the county's defined level of service for supply, pressures, storage, and fire protection. Specifically with respect to Blue Ridge Mountain Estates, Ascension will not negatively affect their water service, and there are potential opportunities to improve the overall system as a result of this development. With respect to sanitary services, the project team is working with Rocky View County to confirm the servicing requirements and infrastructure connections. And at this time, there are plans for new utilities, reuse of existing utilities, and an expansion of the existing wastewater treatment plant within Watermark. This facility was originally designed to accommodate 4 phases, and only 1 has been constructed to date. And finally, let's talk about stormwater. The stormwater management design meets the current Alberta Environment, City of Calgary, and Rocky View County guidelines. The internal sewer network, new stormwater pond, and dry pond have all been designed to effectively manage stormwater discharge from the site. Water from the pavement will be directed to the new on-site stormwater management pond, which has been sized accordingly. Oops. In the letters that were received from the public during the circulation, there were many comments about school capacities in the area. During both the conceptual scheme and land use amendment process, we reached out to both the Calgary Catholic School District and the Rocky View School Division, and both indicated a school site is not warranted or feasible in the plan area. Rocky View Schools indicated that the Bears Paw School is nearby, not at capacity, and has the ability to grow, and that they don't see the requirement of land to be set aside for a school in Ascension. And the Calgary Catholic School Division indicated that a viable school site is not feasible in this development because of the area's topography, environmental requirements, and setbacks needed to protect the creek. Finally, when considering the proposed plan with respect to the Bears Paw context, this area has been a desirable place for people to live for the last 50 years. Since the 1970s, both country residential and suburban growth have expanded significantly in the area. And today, Ascension is some of the last remaining undeveloped land in South Bears Paw. Given the existing context, we feel that the land uses proposed represent an appropriate plan in this unique transition to urban to rural context. Next steps, looking forward. Oops. We received several questions through the project website in advance of this event asking about the timing of the development, specifically when construction is anticipated to start and when homes will be available for sale. The timing of development will depend on when the land use amendment is approved by council, which based on the timeline shown earlier is targeted for this winter. If the land use is approved, construction on the site could start as soon as 2024 with the first homes available in 2025. The land use application would be followed by a subdivision application and a stripping and grading application. So generally construction can start as soon as 6 months to a year after land use approval. Again, assuming the approvals are gained from Rocky View County, homes could be available as soon as 1 year after that. Residential development will generally start from the central southeast and move southeast area and move towards the northwest. It is anticipated that Ascension could build out within approximately 10 to 15 years. These are estimated timelines for now, but updates will be posted on the project website as milestones are achieved and we get a better sense of the timeline. So we appreciate everyone who pre-submitted their questions in advance of the event and hope we were able to provide you with a response through the presentation. However, if you do have additional comments or questions for the project team, you can always send them to us through the project website after this event. In addition, we will have a feedback survey regarding this event posted to the project website for the next 2 weeks. And then finally, as noted earlier, the updated application will be circulated by Rocky View County in the fall, so additional feedback can be provided to them at that time. So now I'm going to have Kayla help me out and see if there were some questions asked that we can answer either by myself or many of us on the team.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathy. So one of the questions that came in, I'm going to direct to Jason Dunn from Bunt, our transportation engineer. So this question is about Bears Paw Road, connecting up to the north, and what improvements are proposed there.
Hi, Kayla, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Okay, so when we did the review, one of the important things we do is try and work out where traffic is coming to and from. And so obviously to the west, there is Cochrane. We allowed for a certain percentage of the traffic to go to and from Cochrane, but overall as a destination, it's not a major one. And so there's only a very small amount of traffic that we anticipate will actually want to go out that way. And so for the small increase in traffic that we anticipate coming down that way, the Bears Paw Road was suitable for that. We envisage that most of the traffic will be heading back towards Calgary, and so be heading out through Blue Ridge and out to 12 Mile Coulee that way.
Thank you, Jason. All right, just looking through some of the other questions that have come in. So this one I will direct to Dennis Inglis from Highfield. So would there be a deadline to build the houses once the land is purchased, like in Watermark? And also, do you have any plans to mitigate the construction impacts?
Thanks, Kayla. within a year. So when we sell a lot to a builder, he'll have anywhere from a year to 18 months to put a house on that lot. That's standard, I would say, in the Calgary marketplace and the communities we're dealing with. Second question about mitigation of construction. I think when you look at any construction, we have, I would say, Rocky View County guidelines that we have to follow with dust mitigation. That's probably the biggest one that comes across anyone's timeline when you look at construction. So if you looked at the most notable one is probably Watermark that's been built in this community. They went through a construction process probably where they had to use water to mitigate the dust. And at certain points during construction, if it's too windy, we have to shut down. So those are probably I would say dust is probably the biggest thing. Construction access will come off of the 12-mile Cooley Road once the roundabout is built. And from the process of, I'll answer another question while I'm here. When you look at what we're going to build there, single family, will it take 10 to 15 years? If it takes 5 years, that'll be better for us. We just threw that time frame out there. So if that question is more of why would it taking you that long, whatever the market decides, if the market absorbs a little quicker, we'll absorb a little quicker as well. But I wouldn't say, I'm not going to say steadfast, it's 10 to 15 years. I just look at what the pace of other construction is taken in this area with that type of density, i.e. Watermark, and it could take that long.
Thanks, Dennis. So the next question I can answer quickly. So Kathy, if you can bring us to page 23. So the question is, can you tell us more about the addition of a connection to Glenbow Ranch Park? So this is just a flag. So the connection is to what's known as Glenbow Ranch Area J. So that is different from the park located in the Husking Area Structure Plan. Glenbow Ranch Area J is a separate area structure plan in Rocky View County that was approved several years ago, and they have an area identified as Cell J in that plan. So the road connection that we show within the plan area on page 35, you can see on sort of that western southwest corner, the light blue road pops out west from the plan area to connect to Cell J instead of connecting down south to connect to Bears Paw Village Road. And that was at the request of council at the conceptual scheme stage. All right, the next question here I will direct to Jacob. The question is, will the marketplace be built in the initial phase or later?
Great, thank you for the question. Actually, we are looking to kick off the marketplace in the initial phase. Servicing and the roads do come from the southeast, and there is some significant demand for retail and for the marketplace in this broader part of greater Calgary area. Actually, if you look at a map of amenities and services that exist in this part of the world, it's vastly underserved and there's a significant amount of demand. So we do see an opportunity for things like a food store and some small neighborhood services right off with the first phase of this project.
Thanks, Jacob. The next question will be to Phil. The question is, can you detail what exactly the changes to the water treatment facility in Watermark will be?
Yeah, sure. The water treatment plant is it is owned by Rocky View County, who runs and operates it now. It is actually located outside of the Rocky View County. It's in the city of Calgary land. So I'm assuming that's the question they're asking about, the water treatment, not the wastewater treatment. But there's upgrades to it required, 2 new process treatment trains, replacement of an ultraviolet unit, upgrades to the distribution pumps, and a treated water storage expansion. Those are all in the books right now for expansion.
And the question did specify in Watermark, so maybe if you could speak to the stormwater facility there as well.
You mean the wastewater, I think. So
wastewater, sorry.
Yeah, so there is one treatment train that's existing there within the building, and that services Watermark. to bring in Ascension. It's an expansion of the building and installation of new treatment trains. We'll need 2 additional ones. And there's space within the property for a total of 3. So we'll require 2 of the 3. And those will be located just to the north of the existing building. It'll be a building expansion itself.
Okay, perfect. The next question we have here asks about a high school. So where school age children are directed, sort of kindergarten to high school, that would be determined by the school boards once the community starts building out and those kids are living there. In speaking with the school divisions preliminarily, a couple of the 2 Catholic schools identified at this time were in Cochrane, and then the public would be Bearspaw School just to the north, and Bearspaw High School in Cochrane. However, depending on when the community builds out and when those kids start school, the school divisions will have the discretion to reassign where they go at that time. All right. Sorry, just skimming the questions here. So there was a question here about, we mentioned that the homes on the south perimeter have doubled in lot size, but there's no mention of new size. Can you comment? So in the shift from the October 2022 land use application shown on page 11. So at our initial application there utilized the R urban district in the Rocky View County land use bylaw. And the minimum lot size in there, I can get the number. The minimum lot area in that is 0.22 acres. If we switch to the next slide, our site 1 now with the updated application, we've updated that so that the minimum site area is now 0.49 acres. So that's a little more than double the minimum lot size permitted on those lots. I'll also just flag, in looking at a direct control district and land use bylaw, the minimums aren't necessarily the end lot size, it is the minimums. All right, next question. So there is a question here about dark sky policies and about lighting along Blue Ridge Rise. So I might direct that question to Chris or Jason. Are you able to speak to lighting requirements along Blue Ridge?
Thanks, Kayla. So essentially, this is an issue that will be required to be resolved with the county once we get a bit more into the detailed design. I had a quick look around communities, and obviously the Watermark one does not have street lighting. So depending on what the county desires, it depends what ends up being built there. So that'll be an ongoing discussion with the county as this progresses.
I think I would just add that we're open to looking at, there's dark sky policies, there's lots of opportunities there. So we're open to seeing what might be the least impactful from a lighting perspective. And we'll be advancing that conversation with Rocky View.
Yeah, and I think it probably would be fair to say that, you know, just so we're not misleading anybody, there almost inevitably will be lighting along Blue Ridge Lies with the volume of traffic. But I think, you know, I'd certainly would point to the technology of streetlights today is a lot different than it was in decades past with LED lighting, which can be very directional in terms of how it's lighting the street and not spilling out into other areas, and really reducing light pollution sort of behind the street or up into the sky as well. So, you know, I think, like I say, not to be misleading, I think it, you know, we should be honest, especially at the approach to the roundabout and so on. There absolutely is a need for street lighting and those circumstances. So, but certainly we do so with modern technology and practices.
Kathy, I would just add to Chris there, it's Dennis. If the Rocky View County allows us to go dark sky like Watermark as a developer, we have no problem doing that. I'd prefer it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I'd say I'm not speaking to the internal parts of the community, but I think certainly a lot, you know, approaching 12 Mile Coulee, the roundabout, those sort of areas, I think it's a given in those areas.
Thank you. Another question, there was just a point of clarification here about the access to Bearspaw Village Road being emergency access only. So I just want to reiterate sort of our road network there is proposed to pop out to the west and connect to Bearspaw or Glenbow Ranch Cell J. The connection to Bearspaw Village Road would be emergency access only. So there might be a road connection there, but it would just be for emergency vehicles in the case that they're needed. It wouldn't be for regular day-to-day traffic.
And I think I note that, yes, improvements have to be made to make that safe, you know, manage emergency vehicles.
Right. Phil, I'll direct this question to you. This is regarding drinking water coming. Will the drinking water come from Rocky View Water Co-op, or will there be an on-site water treatment facility?
Well, it's an expansion of the Blazer system, which is the Rocky View. It's not really a water co-op, but they just call it the Blazer system that Rocky View recently took over. So it's an expansion of the existing system, and so there is already an existing on-site water treatment facility. I mentioned some of the upgrades there earlier. We would have on our own site reservoir and a booster station, given that we're at higher elevations and we need to appropriately bring the pressures up. So, but we wouldn't do no treatment on our site. There would only be treatment expansions at the existing facility.
Okay, thanks, Phil. So there's a question here that asks about only one entrance and exit via 12 Mile Coulee Road. So just a point of clarification there as well. So there is an entrance at the southeast off 12 Mile Coulee Road along Blue Ridge Rise and then into the community. And then there's also a connection in the northwest corner at Bearspaw Road. So there's two main points of entry and exit from the regional road network.
I can elaborate a bit on that too, Kayla, that sort of the ability to have two accesses on 12 Mile Coulee Road would not fit provincial regulations with respect to the spacing from Crowchild Trail and the interchange. So the proposed roundabout at, you know, Blue Ridge Rise connecting with Tusslewood Drive, which goes into Tuscany to the east, that access is as far north as provincial regulations will allow, and no other access will be allowed any farther north than that. So really it provides the only available opportunity to access these lands from 12 Mile Coulee Road.
Thanks, Chris.
Kayla, it's Dennis here. Down at the bottom, I was just scrolling ahead. Somebody had their caps lock on and said, please read the questions out as written. So can we just go one by one?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can read them verbatim if you'd prefer.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks. So the next question here. There is a question that says, what is the fire station capacity for the new residents? I don't know that I can speak to that one. Kathy, is that something that we can speak to at this point, or can we defer that?
I'll ask Phil.
Sure. Fire stations don't necessarily need to expand because of a community like this that is brought in. Generally, a fire station has the capacity to fight a fire. They don't assume multiple fires around various places. You can have more than one home on fire, obviously, as they catch from one to the other. But generally, there's a single event, and so this is being serviced out of the Bearspaw Fire Station 103, and there's been no concerns raised by Rocky View relative to this development. And I should mention on top of it, Tuscany has a fire station as well, City of Calgary, and there are agreements between municipalities in the event of something catastrophic where backup is needed.
Thank you. So another question here, you spoke about Bearspaw School having capacity, however, it's only up to grade 8, grades 9 to 12. Students go to Cochrane High, which is well over capacity. Did you ask Rocky View schools about Cochrane High's capacity? So we didn't specifically ask about the elementary versus grade school capacity. We asked for general school capacities in the area. They did indicate that a school site was not warranted or technically feasible in this area. And at our previous contact with them, they indicated that the Cochrane High School would be where they would be directed. Following this event, I can follow up with them again and seek further information about the high school, but that is the information that we've received to date. All right. The question here I'll direct to Jacob regarding the marketplace. So it says, what is the plan for the retail? How will the plan evolve? Why does the new application include additions for such large retail opportunities? If this is a transition zone, what opportunities exist to minimize or remove the retail? Just as sort of an initial comment or response to that question is that the marketplace size is the same as it was in the conceptual scheme and the previous application submitted. It hasn't increased in size. And some areas have been identified for residential within the marketplace area. Jacob, if you want to elaborate on that at all.
Yeah, thanks, Kayla, for that. And definitely it's the marketplace is actually, from my perspective, smaller than what we started with when we started in the conceptual scheme. And we've really looked at trying to fit it in better with the community and hearing the feedback that we've received over the past number of years. As Kayla mentions, we have converted some of these lands to be available for residential. In terms of the look and feel, we do intend to make this fit within the neighborhood and the community in Bearspaw. We're looking for very much like a mountain rustic kind of feel from the architectural feeling. Some of the photos on the screen right now are from our township development down in the deep south of Calgary, if anyone's ever been down to Legacy. That's a recent project that we did. So we're going to do something very similar. We've been around for over 60 years as developers in Western Canada, primarily focused in retail and mixed use. Myself, I've been in the business for about 20 years, developing these kind of projects. And we're very excited about the opportunity to bring a good community flavor to Bearspaw and the broader Rocky View County area. This is one of the renderings that's on the screen now, where we are wanting to create a really nice main street with some local shops and services to be able to come into the marketplace. And then further north up against Crowchild Trail, we have set aside some space for some larger users. And as a matter of fact, we've had over 100 calls already from different businesses, many visits to our website, people inquiring. In fact, many of your neighbors who have businesses have called and said, I live nearby and I want to open a business in the marketplace when it comes on. So that's sort of the forum will be mostly focused on small scale retail with a few larger options. And as detailed in the direct control, those are going to be pushed to the far north up against Crowchild Trail so that we have the maximum separation from the existing residential. I hope that answers the question for everyone.
Thanks, Jacob. So another question here, will this recording be posted online? And if so, where? Yes, it will be posted online. It'll be posted on the project website, highfieldbearspaw.ca. And that link is, just so you can see it visually, if you go to slide 54. Or maybe not.
Right here. It's right at the bottom.
There we are. Yeah, so that link at the bottom, highfieldbearspaw.com, sorry, is where the recording will be posted. Another question, the proposed widening of Blue Ridge Rise, including sidewalks, is it intended, how far up Blue Ridge Rise is it intended to go? Will road improvements be made into the area where the existing 18 homes are located? So if you go to slide 36, please. So Chris, can you speak to how far up the Blue Ridge Rise improvements will go? You're on mute right now, Chris.
Okay, yeah, so the extent of changes to Blue Ridge Rise would be essentially just up to sort of the main entrance to the neighborhood where the road turns to the north, so along the marketplace. So it would not carry through into the Watermark community around the corner where the houses are directly facing Blue Ridge Rise. There would be no changes to that road.
Thank you. Just while we're in the road section as well, there was a question about Township Road 253A and access changes. So if we go to slide 39, Chris, can you walk through that access change?
Yeah, once Ascension is underway, there will be one resident and one property owner that still requires access along 253A. I mentioned earlier the provincial regulations for access onto 12 Mile Cooley Road, and so that will prohibit retaining the existing connection that 253A has to 12 Mile Cooley Road. So essentially, as Ascensions develops, that access to 253A will basically come from the internal road network of Ascension itself. So the resident and the property owner who still requires that for access at this time would essentially come through these new public roads that are developed within Ascension.
Thank you. So there's a question here. Why is this not a City of Calgary project and annexed into the city for city services?
Okay, fabulous. That's a good question. You know, this is definitely a unique area. And when the annexation was done in 2009, there was lots of discussions. As you'll note, you've got some areas to the south of you that are within the city of Calgary. And then you've got, you know, other areas like Lynx Ridge that's being provided the services from the city of Calgary. It has not, I mean, we've wondered, you know, is this a development that's better suited in Calgary? That's not for us to decide. Of course, that's an annexation process that each municipality would need to undertake and be interested in. For us, we wanted to find something that kind of bridged the gap. If this was included into the city of Calgary, it would probably have the same expectations as Rockland Park with a minimum of 8 units per acre. Tuscany to the west is actually sitting at about 5.4 units per acre. So it would be a different amount of density. It's not something that we have, you know, sought as a solution. I don't know if Dennis, you want to add anything to this, but it's definitely an interesting area where we've got unique lines between the city of Calgary and Rocky View in this area.
I just add, Kathy, the last annexation, when they annexed Rockland Park in, this land was considered, and whatever the political views were at the time as to why it came in and why it didn't come in, that we don't know. But I can assure you that if this was in the city of Calgary, it would be at 8 to 10 UPA. What we're trying to achieve here is a made in Rocky View solution where our density is close to that of our neighbor to the south, which I call Watermark, which is under development. And, you know, that's kind of where we sat when we took back some of the commentary on what size of lots we were going to have.
Thank you. So we have another question here. Will a controlled entry gate to the existing 18 homes on Blue Ridge Rise be designed into the Blue Ridge Rise upgrade to control or limit entry into this rural community? Dennis, are you able to speak to that one?
Yeah, absolutely. If Rocky View County allows me to put a controlled entry gate, I'll guarantee it's got to be emergency access though. We'll put the gate up if RVC allows us, but I know for a fact it'll have to be emergency vehicles to get to those homeowners.
Yeah, I would say it probably is a tricky thing. Just it's being a public road versus a private road. I think if it was a private road, it would be a lot easier thing to manage, but being a public road, can be problematic legally.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. It's not going to happen. It's a Rocky View road, and unless you have a private strata road, that's the only place you can do those gates.
We'll ask the question. You know, I don't want to just blow this question off. I don't, guys. We'll ask Rocky View County that exact question and see what their input is for sure.
Sorry, there's a few questions that I feel have been sort of double asked, so I'm just trying to make sure that we get everything answered. So I won't necessarily be reading everyone's question verbatim if it was already asked and answered earlier. This question is regarding the marketplace, I believe. So Jacob, there was asked if you could provide more context for demand. The comment says, I see a lot of empty storefronts in the Northwest and existing grocery stores are not what I would call busy.
Yeah, thank you. I think I kind of answered it with the last question there, but I mean, we have significant interest from many retailers and coming into this area. There is less retail per square foot and per person in the Northwest part of the Calgary area than there is in the rest of the city. So while it may notionally feel like there might be some empty storefronts around, it depends where you go, how those retail establishments are positioned, maybe how they're cared for, how old they are, how good the access is. There's a variety of characteristics that are associated with that. This site has some very strong fundamentals, and there's some significant demand from many retail businesses that have called us over the past 6-8 months in particular. So, again, back to my expertise in this business, we see a lot of potential here to bring a very unique and special development to the community. We showed in one of the renderings the community gathering space and the ability to program. We met with the community association and talked about partnering with them on some of these programming opportunities, and they were very excited about that, and we're pretty excited to get into that as well. So I think that beyond that, I don't know if I can elaborate any further on demand. It certainly is our business, and I can tell you that there is strong demand here.
Right, thank you, Jacob. There's another question here about how many lots will be in Site 1. So the subdivision, the precise subdivision plan hasn't yet been prepared for this plan area. So I can't give an exact number, but as noted earlier, the minimum lot size in our updated bylaw is for approximately half-acre lots or larger in this area. All right. So a question regarding water service. It sounds like a lot of work will be It sounds like a lot of work will need to be done by Rocky View County to be able to provide water to Ascension. How will it be possible to commence construction without water in the near term? That question is to Phil.
Well, there is water, some water capacity, and so the system itself will be expanded as it's needed. The first phase will involve extensions of utilities to get to the site and installation of a reservoir and a booster station within the Ascension property. And as upgrades are required to the Rocky View's water treatment system, they will be done. There's other upgrades such as intakes down at the bow that need repair and upgrade, as well as potentially the raw water supply line. So all of those will come over time and be staged in as required.
Thank you. There's a question here. What is the anticipated total population add for this entire development? So the Ascension conceptual scheme identifies an addition of 883 units total across this whole plan area. So this land use amendment is proposing to be in alignment with the approved conceptual scheme in terms of the total number of units. As that translates to population, it kind of varies depending on if you get one person living in a house or 4. In the conceptual scheme, we assumed 2.2 people per comprehensively planned unit and 3 people for single detached units. So that equals around 2,375 people using those assumption numbers. There's a question here. Do we know what the starting point will be for residential? As in, will it be from 300,000 or more? So I believe they're asking about sort of the starting price for residential in this area. And I'll direct that to Dennis, please.
Sure, thanks. The starting price, if that's the land price or the building price, we envision it'll be in that 400 mark and up is where we think pricing is going to be. Obviously, I can't tell you that exact pricing until I've got all my construction costs in, the upgrades that are required before we can start. But I would say they're in that, say, 350, 400 up to 1.5, 1.7, could be $2 million on the outside. That's what I'd say right now.
Thank you. This question is to Chris. It's a bit more detail on the lighting along Blue Ridge Rise. It's asking how far along Blue Ridge Rise the lighting would go. Is it the same as the entry point to the community?
I think, as we mentioned earlier, I think sort of the details of that and the conversation with Rocky View County as to how they want to apply their own dark sky policies in this case would still remain to be determined. But I think certainly it's a conceivable scenario where, yes, that entire extent of Blue Ridge Rise could be street lit. And again, as I mentioned, that would be done with sort of the modern type of street light technology with softer LED lighting, directional lenses that are very efficient at directing lighting as the road, as opposed to spilling behind the street lights or up towards the sky.
Thank you. This question is to Phil. So how many trucks will be coming in and out of Watermark daily to remove waste from the treatment facility?
That's really a better question for Rocky View operations. However, in terms of the capacity of the treatment plant, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking to add 2 more trains. There's 1 train there, so it operates at 350 cubic meters per day. We will expand up to an additional 700. Will we use all of that? Unlikely, but that will be the expansion that we're proposing to provide. Does it mean that there's going to be 2 to 3 times the amount of trucks? Not necessarily, because as you expand, you can build in better efficiencies and manage the trucks more effectively because there's redundancy within the system. So, and there's the potential that the trucks could be larger. Again, I don't want to comment too much on that because that's a Rocky View operations question.
Thanks. So the next question here is, why are you proposing such a huge diversion from the ASP with so many large impactful aspects? Why not follow the existing ASP so as to reduce the area impacts to both residents and communities? Kathy, can I give that to you?
Well, the conceptual scheme is actually appended to the Bearspaw Area Structure Plan. And so that went through council, it went through the CMRB, and so it does exist in a statutory document approval. So it is part of the Bearspaw ASP. And we actually are in alignment with the conceptual scheme, except for those couple elements that we noted, which were some larger lot size adjacent to the existing residential. And that road, although noted with a note in the conceptual scheme, it wasn't shown on the drawing, but that the road would extend into Cell J directly to the west. So we are conforming to that approved conceptual scheme that went through the CMRB.
Thanks. So another question to Phil. It was noted that the wastewater would be treated in Watermark. How is the water to be transported there? Is there piping already in place?
I'm not quite sure I understand what they mean, how the water is to be transported there.
So I believe it's the wastewater pipe connections between Ascension and
Yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, so we will have an extension of the sanitary piping from Watermark up into our site. There was already a pipe that was pre-installed from that treatment facility. It's currently dry, and it runs can't remember the name of the roads, but it runs north and then east, and it's stubbed up to 12 Mile Coulee. And so that is not in use, but that was always intended for the expansion of the facility.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question here. That's a bit of a duplicate, but it's come up a couple times. So what improvements will be made to Bears Paw Road? I might direct that one to Dennis if possible.
Are you talking on the side? I presume the sidewalks is what it seems like when I read through these questions.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have sidewalks on the north. We haven't decided if we're doing anything on the south side yet of that road. But on the north side, we will have continuity out of the roundabout. So.
Sorry, the Bears Paw Road's the northwest corner.
Oh, the northwest corner? Well,
Yeah.
if it's an emergency access, we're not going to do anything with it. Why would
Yeah.
it wouldn't,
That's
we
the
wouldn't
public
need it.
access. So
What's
I
that?
think- and I
Phil,
think-
do you know if we have any requirements with this Bears Paw Road coming out of our development, the school
No.
sitting directly to the north?
No, the majority of traffic is coming off a 12 Mile Coulee, and that's the intention. We don't want to encourage traffic coming through Bears Paw Road, so there are no plans to do upgrades to that road right now. You do the upgrades and people will come if you expand that road, and the intention is to keep it the low volume rural standard type of road.
But at this point in time, we haven't received any feedback from Rocky View requesting upgrades.
No.
I'll note that. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, the next question is, why is this information session not available for in-person discussion? So the reason for the format of this event was to present sort of all the information thoroughly and consistently. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was able to hear all the detailed information about the project. And then also a virtual event also provides the opportunity to post it online so that those who are unable to make the specific time of an in-person event are able to view it on their own schedule. All right, so there's a question here. What happens to the yellow house that is currently on the land that has the edge of Blue Ridge Rise roundabout now sketched into it? Does that house remain with a smaller yard? Is that house not part of the future? What is the plan for the full plot of land there? So I think if you go down 2 more slides, or the one with the roundabout diagram, that might demonstrate it the best. So I believe the house there, they speak about the yellow house. So I think that one there. All right, so that, Dennis, are you able to answer that? I believe that land has already been acquired to accommodate the road expansion there.
That's true. Yeah, that property was acquired to take into account the additional land that we require for the roundabout. So the house will remain, the lot will just get smaller.
The next question says, do we have a ladder truck for elevated structures? I'm not sure what that's in reference to, so if that person could maybe elaborate.
I think that refers to a fire truck, and is the county, does it have fire equipment capable of fighting fires in Ascension? Would be, I think, what that question is referring to. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier, that Rocky View County, including their fire department, have reviewed this application and have expressed no such concern.
Thanks, Chris. All right, the next question, would you not expect that people will simply drive further down 12 Mile Coulee Road and then turn right past Blue Ridge Rise and then cut back through the community to get back to the Ascension development? So I believe that comment would refer to potentially, I guess, cutting down below Watermark and then back up Bears Paw Village Road. And I think we noted earlier the Bears Paw Village Road connection is emergency access only. So if someone's coming from 12 Mile Coulee Road, the Blue Ridge Rise entrance would be the only entrance to this community. The next question, what plans are there to allow free traffic flow during road construction to communities like Watermark in case of emergencies, considering there's only one way in and out via 12 Mile Coulee Road? Chris, are you able to speak to that one?
Yes, I think in general that I think, most people on the webinar here will have experienced construction in Calgary, and as frustrating as that is, I think there is always a principle that roads in Calgary remain open during construction. So that would be the case on 12 Mile Coulee Road as well, that it cannot be closed during construction, and simply put that we will plan construction around how to stage it progressively to build the improvements while keeping traffic flow available at all times.
Thank you. So the next question is in two parts. I'll answer the first part, and then Jacob, I'll direct the second part to you. So the first part is how many residents would be living in Ascension when it's fully built out, and how many square feet is the marketplace? So we did bring this up earlier about how many people will live there once it's fully built out. So the number of units is proposed to be in alignment with the conceptual scheme. Depending on the number of people living there, we can assume approximately 2,300 people overall in 883 units. And then Jacob, can you speak to how many square feet is the marketplace?
Yeah, we don't have a specific square footage right now. One of the challenges is because the grades are so significant with stores that are of larger footprints. You can imagine a house being smaller. You can easily work between houses with the grading. But given we're on the side of what I kind of colloquially call the other version of the COP ski hill, we have a lot to work with in terms of trying to make this work. So it could be around 200,000 square feet, maybe 250, maybe 150. It's difficult to tell exactly where that's going to land. That's the retail component. For the residential, we don't know when we get to that point how many square feet we're going to end up with. But this is a great slide that we put together to kind of show the sloping that we have to deal with on the site. So it is, once we get further on and get a better understanding of how we're going to be able to parcel this development into specific cells, it'll help us understand. But there's going to be a lot of land that's going to turn into slopes and retaining walls and landscaping. So that's as best as we can do at this point, given we're at land use.
Thanks, Jacob. The next one is also regarding the marketplace. So are you protecting Rocky View County residents to purchase or rent marketplace stores, or are they for anyone?
The stores are for anyone, for sure. But if local folks are interested, we obviously will take that into to consideration, and we definitely want to have a more local flavor for this development, particularly on the Main Street component. So I would say that we would give some additional thought and preference to those types of business operators. But again, we don't generally set things aside this early on, because people get aspirations, and then when the center's built in a few years, maybe they're not, they've moved on and decided to open their business elsewhere. So we certainly will be open to all people coming forward with their different business ideas.
Thanks. So the next question is about Bears Paw Road again. So why is there a need to push through the road past two schools and the community center on Bears Paw Road? It will be used as a rat run to avoid the more onerous access off 12 Mile Coulee. So I think we've answered this one previously regarding sort of the traffic projections for the area being minimal through that access point. But it should also be flagged that a community can't just have one access point. It does need at least more than one for emergency access pieces. So that connection was required. The next question, so considering pathways from Ascension are going to link up to the Lasso Loop, what considerations have been made regarding impacts to the Lasso Loop and surrounding ecosystems? Kathy, can I direct that one to you?
Sure. I mean, we're working with Rocky View County and certainly their parks guidelines and regulations, and they're quite excited to have extensive pathways throughout this area, as is the School and Community Association, to be able to link and, have pathways that kids can, walk along those to get to school or get around the community. So as part of that, I mean, they're going to be placed in areas that are not as sensitive. We do have the appropriate biophysical impact assessments completed. We know where those environmentally significant areas are, and a lot of those are, sitting deeper in our ravine system. And we'll be placing the pathways in a suitable place that is, closer to homes and not going through the natural environment in a way that it would be impactful. So we do have regulations that we follow, and we'll be fitting those appropriately and working with Rocky View to make sure that they are in, the best areas that aren't impacting the environment.
Thanks. All right, so the next question was a point of clarification. How many homes are expected in this development? It was noted before we are proposing to be in alignment with the conceptual scheme, which proposed 883 units across the whole plan area. And that includes both the neighborhood portion and the marketplace combined. So the next question I'll direct to Phil. Is it possible for Ascension to have their own wastewater treatment plant similar to Watermark?
I guess anything's possible, but that was not the intended plan. There's always been a plan to expand the existing treatment plant. Typically, Rocky View doesn't want to operate multiple plant locations. They like to consolidate regional servicing. And so that's always been the plan to expand that building.
There was a question just before that, Kayla, on the density of Watermark. So I just wanted to put this slide back up just to show the densities. The units per acre surrounding our lands, and Watermark is actually averaged at 2 units per acre with all the different types of building, the housing types within that development.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so this, the next question will be directed to Chris. So what changes to Highway 1A West to support the turn onto 12 Mile Coulee? Traffic already backs up onto Highway 1A West at peak times.
Yeah, thank you, Kayla. I think the sort of what's proposed for the 12 Mile Coulee and 1A intersection is a comprehensive plan to sort of deal with the existing overcapacity issues at that. So that does include sort of carrying those upgrades substantially to the west. And so you can sort of see in this schematic diagram that those left turn crossovers will also take place well to the west. And this is a holistic solution. It's not just about the traffic from further east into Calgary. It is intended to holistically address all of the existing capacity issues at this intersection. And yes, it will definitely carry the footprint of this will go, probably half a kilometer or more west of the intersection as well, in order to sort of ensure that those capacity improvements are provided for all users in all directions.
Thank you. The next question is, why not leave the Blue Ridge Rise Road for area residents and build your own road into the Ascension area, as this is the most preferred? This is somewhat a duplicate of an earlier question regarding other access off 12 Mile Coulee Road. And as noted, this is the northernmost point south of that interchange that can be connected. So it wouldn't be permitted by provincial standards to allow an additional access.
Yeah, I think that, I think certainly it would be fair to say that Highfield and Roy Op with the community and the marketplace would certainly love and welcome having an additional separate access off 12 Mile Coulee Road. I think that, as Jacob mentioned earlier, access is certainly one of the success factors for community retail areas like this. But unfortunately, we do exist sort of within the bounds of these regulations, and that does require us to consolidate and use Blue Ridge Rise as a single point of access as we proposed.
Thanks, Chris. So another question here regarding Bears Paw Road. It says, you seem to be ignoring the potential issues on Bears Paw Road based on what appears to be an assumption that traffic won't increase. What if you are wrong and traffic and what will you do? Also, why are you not adding sidewalks on Bears Paw Road? Kathy, I don't know if you're able to elaborate, or Chris.
I'll maybe take a crack, and if Jason and Kathy want to elaborate, but I guess it is worth clarifying. Jason's earlier answer was not saying that there is not increased traffic on Bears Paw Road. I think he just said that the lion's share of it is assumed to be using the primary access via 12 Mile Coulee Road to the east, and so it's not saying that there's no increase on traffic on Bears Paw Road. And generally, how do we predict that? Generally it's by looking at existing traffic patterns and sort of how do people who are south of Ascension today, what directions do they go? How do they use the road system and so on? And that's, one of the bases for how we look into the future as well. So, that's really what it is. If you sort of look at the existing intersection of 12 Mile Coulee Road, about 80 to 90% of the traffic that's turning there does go to and from the east, and sort of 10 to 20%, depending on the time of day, goes to and from the west. And so those are the types of assumptions that can be applied to Ascension as well. And we can do that because we observe it in the existing communities and by people's existing behavior as well. So there will be some additional traffic on Bears Paw Road, but as we mentioned, the traffic study that was completed for this project has demonstrated that the existing intersection and infrastructure on Bears Paw Road is capable of doing that, and in fact, helps avoid the issue that was referred to earlier about overbuilding infrastructure, which could sort of create that undesirable, if you build it they will come type impact on those roads. So again, to provide clarity, it's not saying that nobody, we're not predicting that nobody will use it, but again, that the vast majority are preferring to use the path of least resistance, which will be sort of the big, significantly improved high capacity front door that's being provided at 12 Mile Coulee Road.
I think what I'll add too is we're not intentionally not adding sidewalks to Bears Paw Road. It has been it hasn't been part of the discussion thus far. We've been looking at the lands contained within the subject area, but it's certainly something we can have a discussion with Rocky View on. I mean, there's a current cross section there, but it's not something that we're not providing it or purposefully avoiding that. It's just not been part of our discussion to date.
Kathy, if you go to slide 42 as well, I can just sort of highlight as well. It doesn't show it super well, but just a flag too that the pedestrian connections through the community itself, is proposing a regional pathway throughout the community as well as one along the ravine. So we did speak with the Bears Paw Community Association, who indicated a desire to connect the pathway through that ravine. So assuming that the private ownership in that area and the land ownership sort of between those 2 points can be arranged, it is the intent that there could be a pedestrian connection to the north as well, through the pathway network in the community. All right, so the next question says, this is why the Northwest is so beautiful and nature friendly. The retail would destroy our country residential way of life that we are all bought into and paid taxes for. So the question is, what are we doing for the wildlife corridor and the care of wildlife?
No, I think it's a great question, and I answered it a little bit. And that's what our studies do. Our studies identify areas as part of the biophysical. There's wildlife tracking, and there's as well as looking at the land itself. And so you'll see that 22% of the plan area is being retained in its natural state. We've positioned the stormwater facilities and the dry pond in that area as well, which again will also foster additional vegetation as well as wildlife. And so we're following, you know, what is the land telling us for natural areas, and those are the areas that will remain, and they will be protected under environmental reserve, which is part of the Municipal Government Act that has us maintain those areas. So we're complying with all those rules, as well as the studies that were completed. So we're at 7:30. We do have a lot more questions. Oh, go ahead, Dennis. Were you going to say something?
I just want to elaborate on that point.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
When we bought the land from Mrs. when we bought the land from Mrs. Hawkwood, who owned it since the early 1900s, her point to us was she watched development occur from her property down to the Bow River. All that time, all the development forced everything towards her property. So when she looked out over the landscape back in 1900, not a house was built there. All the wildlife freely roamed. So as all these lands developed, as you can see on the map, when all those lands developed, all the development pushed the wildlife where? Pushed it all north, pushed it further west. And the one thing she said is that when the wildlife comes to my property, it wasn't there when I first bought it. It was everywhere. So I want everybody to remember, as everybody developed and everybody bought their little plot of land as we come up further north, Mrs. Hawkwood at one time had this whole area undisturbed. So when people say, where the wildlife going? I'm saying, where were the wildlife in your neighborhood that you designed for? Because they all seem to gravitate to the north.
Dennis. Yeah, so we aren't able to get to all the questions, but we are going to be pulling them all off the Zoom call here, and we'll address them individually as we've been asked to go through each question. We certainly will have them available to share so that you can see all the questions. That doesn't mean you don't have additional questions. I'm just going to go to the slide at the end that has the information on it. We are happy to provide full responses to these, and we'll be putting them up on our website, as well as if there's anything that we can group, and we will be providing all of these comments and questions to Rocky View as well, to our file planner there, as we had received all the previous comments that were submitted, and thank you for those. And we'll have full answers to those questions. And certainly we appreciate the time you've taken to come and listen. And, you know, we spent a good portion of this just outlining all the details and walking you through the application in hopes that you'd have a better understanding. We know that you're neighbors to us, and we appreciate the comments and the questions. Certainly, if there's things we haven't thought about, we want to make sure we do think about it. And we respect, you know, many of the comments are very detailed in regards to everything from the transportation to the interface, and it's a development that is directly adjacent to you. So we will be sending out kind of updates from this. Everyone that's registered, we have that noted, and we'll endeavor to get these questions answered over the next couple of weeks, and then provide that to Rocky View, and as well as we do a what we heard report is something that is available to council as well as we continue to move forward with the application. So we've got we've got an email address here for Darby. She is our communications specialist on the file. You've got access to the webpage, which is highfieldbearspaw.com. There is the QR code there. I'm leaving it up so you can instantly go into that if you'd like to give us additional feedback if you didn't get it done. And we appreciate all the comments that came in. There's still many. We know that we didn't get to all of them. And like I said, we'll do that. So thank you for coming out and spending this time with us. We will be posting the video up. It's now going to be in 2 videos because we had the presentation stop on us there. So we'll have 2 links. We'll have that posted. Share it with your neighbors if they were unable to attend. But again, we appreciate your attendance tonight. Our entire team appreciates you coming out. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.